y'all, it's your girl Missniecytv, and I'm here to do a review for Sistas Season 10, Episode 1. The episode picks up with Andy's car being blown up to smithereens. Everybody's calling her name, they're frantic, everybody's trying to run over there and see if Andy's okay. So eventually Mr. Keys runs over there and he finds her and he tells them that she's over there laid out on the other side of the grass, right? With no shoes, no scut marks, no burn marks, no nothing. And when they get to her, she's like, what happened? She stands up perfectly fine, like nothing's wrong. She tells him that she got a text on her phone, and the next thing she knew, her car blew up. Fatima did call 911 while everybody's crowding around Andy. Rich comes outside with a bat. Maurice is like, what that bat gonna do? It's a fire. The police and the ambulance show, right? And they basically tell Andy that she needs to go get checked out, and Andy's like, no, I'm fine. And her mom is just sitting there letting her talk. Like, her mom is not forcing her or dragging her to the hospital. If that was my mom, she would have definitely forced me to go to the hospital and get checked out. Then we see Rich have a conversation with Mr. Keys and Zach, and they're talking about this wasn't, like, an accident. This happened on purpose. Then, on the other side, Maurice, Pam, and Dylan have a conversation. Everybody is asking Maurice if he's okay. He's like, I'm alright. I was nowhere near the car, so I'm okay. Then they start having a conversation about they're hungry and all. So as everybody's dealing with the Andy situation, Rich steps to the side and he calls Sabrina. He's like, we made it to the cookout. Karen just laughed. He's like, hit me back because everybody wants to know where you are. Then Paige calls Maurice and she tells him that she can't find the keys to the vault and Sabrina was supposed to bring them, but she never made it to the bank. And I'm like, so nobody finds that suspicious. Fatima does talk to the police, and they basically tell her that they gotta check the accelerator and the accelerants because they don't believe that it was an accident. Then everybody goes to check on Danny because they see that she's just standing by the car. And she's like, I'm alright, I just got a lot on my mind. And we're just like, I bet you do. Fatima and everybody go now, except for Dylan, Maurice, and Pam, because Pam goes back to the salon and check on it, and Maurice and Dylan go back to his. Everybody's just sitting there eating and they're talking, and Andy's just staring off into space. She's not eating or nothing, right? Because she's replaying what just happened to her. I'm like, Andy has been through so many traumatic situations that she could have almost lost her life. She really needs to talk to somebody before this actually really drives her to the deep end. Fatima's talking to everybody, and she's like, life is too short. We need to all, like, come together and say what we need to say, basically. And she's like, Mr. Keys, do you have anything you want to say to Zach? And Mr. Keys is like, not that I can think of. Mr. Keys, what she wants you to tell Zach is that you're his father. She doesn't like the fact that you're just sitting up here playing in his face. Then they start talking about who possibly could have did this to Andy's car. And she's like, I think this is a warning sign that I should drop the class action lawsuit against Dr. Cruz. And they start talking about Dr. Cruz, and they start talking about getting Andy a rental car. Fatima's like, I'll reserve you one online. Mr. Keys says that he'll take Andy and her mom home. That gives this whole speech about how everybody needs to be careful. We're at the hospital. We see somebody getting rolled in on the stretcher, and they're like, she has blood force trauma to the head, she has internal bleeding and all this other stuff, and we all know that it's Sabrina. And the doctor uses the defibrillator twice to resuscitate her. They finally get her resuscitated, and they send her up to ICU. Over at the bank, we see Maurice and Dylan come in with the keys that Paige wanted, and Paige is all frantic because there's customers requesting for the money, and she's like, I can't even get to the vault. So that's when Maurice gives her the key. She's able to get involved now. While Maurice is sitting there talking to the customers, Paige and Dylan are talking, and Dylan tells Paige that Andy's car blew up, and it was a whole thing. And Paige asks Dylan, is he okay? Dylan's like, I'm okay, but I lost my appetite. Maurice is like, I'm okay too, but it was crazy. Outside in the car, Maurice and Dylan have a conversation, and Maurice is basically like, this is not like Sabrina to miss anything. She missed the cookout. She wasn't at the bank. Something is really wrong. And Dylan is like, don't let your imagination run wild. She might just be hungover. And Maurice is like, that's true, but she could still enter her phone. Maurice is like, unless she's throwing up over the toilet, then I don't. Maurice is like, we're gonna go over to her house because I know where the spare key is. Back over at the hospital, because Maurice and Dylan go to check Sabrina's house, and obviously she wasn't there because she's at the hospital. Maurice is all freaking out, like, where could she possibly be? Maurice talks to the lady at the front desk. She basically like, I can't tell you nothing. Maurice is like, I have a missing friend. The only part that I didn't like about this is that he didn't say Sabrina's name, because if he probably would have said that, even though the nurse is nasty and said that she wouldn't give him no information because she still could have been like, oh, she is here. Dylan had to step in and let her know, and he's basically like, you can tell me something because under the HIPAA law, if somebody's missing, you're allowed to disclose information. And the nurse is like, well, this hospital has a stricter policy against. After they get done talking to the lady at the front desk, right, Officer Green is there, and Maurice is like, Officer Fine, and he's like, what, excuse me? Maurice is like, I have a lot on my mind, trying to play it off, right? So the Officer Green is like, so what are you doing here? Maurice is like, I have a missing friend and I'm trying to find her. Officer Green is basically like, your entire friend group misplaced his friend. Maurice is like, Karen did go missing at one time. Then Officer Green is like, what makes you think that your friend is missing? Maurice is like, well, she didn't show up to the cookout that we were having. She didn't answer her phone, and when I went to her house, she wasn't there. Officer Green is like, well, she did have a lot of fun last night, so she might just be drunk somewhere, hungover. Maurice is like, yeah, but she's not irresponsible like that. She would answer her phone. Maurice is like, what are you doing here? Officer Green is like, well, there was an accident, and the person that was in the accident can't even really talk for themselves or anything, and it seems like they won't even make it through the night. And I'm like, Maurice, little do you know, he's talking about Sabrina. Maurice is like, how long do we have to wait before we file a missing persons report? Officer Green is like, there's no time limit. If you think your friend's missing, file one. Officer Green is like, I'm sure Danny will keep me in the loop. And Maurice is like, y'all got it like that? Officer Green is like, I really hope so. Officer Green, Danny don't really want you. You were just some fun time, but she really wants to be with Tony. Stairs on Sabrina's side of the hospital. The doctor that's working on Sabrina tells the nurse on that floor that they need to contact the next of kin because it doesn't seem like Sabrina will make it through the night. But if she does survive this, she will need intense physical therapy. Sabrina is in a coma. I wonder who Sabrina's next of kin is listed on her paper, and whoever that is, they need to be contacted immediately. And also, I've noticed every time that the sisters or anybody that's close to them is in this hospital, nobody wants to do their job. Nobody wants to give them information. What kind of hospital is it? Over at Zach and Fatima sit down and they have a conversation. And Zach is like, I'm glad that Karen, Faith, and Aaron left what they did, because if they didn't, this would have caught them too. And I'm so glad that they left. And then Zach is just sitting there reflecting, like, I don't know what I would have did if I would have lost y'all. And it's my job to protect y'all and love y'all. And it really bothered me that I possibly wasn't going to be able to do that. Fatima's like, well, I wasn't even looking for a knight in shining armor and a man. We protect each other, and I'm not scared to get down and dirty with my man, whatever life throws at us. Zach is like, how did I get so lucky? Fatima's like, you must have caught me slipping or something. Then Zach is like, well, I think you should go stay with your mom and your dad until this blows over. Fatima's like, why? They're not going to scare me out of the house or home. Zach is like, yeah, but it happened here, and if it's a threat to Andy, it might be a threat to you, and I can't have that. Fatima's like, well, you know, Dr. Cruz, if he's so high up the way that he thinks he is and he has all these connections, he'll be able to find me wherever. Fatima's like, I'm good, we're good, and everything's gonna be okay. Zach is like, you promise? Fatima's like, I promise. And then it turns into a whole different type of conversation where Zach reminds her how she was eating that chicken bone and he wants her to eat him like that. So they go upstairs and they get down to business. Over at Andy's penthouse, Andy and her mom finally make it to the house, and to Andy's surprise, Andy's mom is acting a little bit weird, and that's when Andy's sister pops out of nowhere, like, surprise. And Andy's like, Cheyenne, what are you doing? Cheyenne is like, well, I told Mom that I was going to surprise you. Andy looks at her mom and she's like, what? Andy's mom is like, well, I was so glad to have both my daughters under the same roof again. Andy's like, Cheyenne, take my robe off. So Cheyenne does take the robe off, but apparently Cheyenne doesn't have any clothes on, so they tell her to put the robe on. Andy's mom is basically having this conversation with Andy, and she's like, that's your sister, and you need to love her. I really hate those type of people. I don't care if it's any other family member in this world. If they disturb my peace in any type of way, they can't be in my life. Like, what are you talking about? People really have to learn that titles are just titles. They only hold weight if you show love and care and attention to them. I've noticed that Valerie, Andy's mom, is going to try to use her sickness at any time that she can, and she's going to pull that card to get her way in any situation. Because she's like, I'm going to go through this chemo, so you and your sister need to get along. And she knows that that'll shut Andy up and do whatever she says. But I do think Andy needs to stand up for herself, and this might be the root of the problem why Andy never stands up for herself or defends herself, because she feels like she can't defend herself against her mom in certain situations. Over at Danny's, we see that she went home and she changed her clothes and she washed her hair and she gets a knock on the door and she thinks that it's like some Jehovah's Witnesses or something. But it's Tony. So he comes in, they sit down, they have a conversation. She's basically on a pledge repeat. She's like, I did you wrong, you did me wrong, now take me back. Like, no. Both of y'all did wrong. Y'all don't need to be with each other. You cheated physically. You stole money from me. What's the point of y'all being together? I don't get it. But if she wants to be with him, I like it, I love it. But they don't definitely need to be. Over at Maurice and Dylan are sitting down and they're recapping the cookout and everything that happened with Andy. And Dylan's like, your friends could really... As they're talking, Maurice gets a call from Paige, and then Paige is frantic on the phone, and she's crying, and she's breaking down, and she's like, Maurice, you won't believe what just happened. She basically tells him that an officer came into the bank because they found a business card in an accident victim's pocket. And Maurice is like, okay, we pass out business cards all the time. What's wrong? Paige is like, you're not listening. Paige goes on to say that the card belonged to Sabrina, and Maurice is like, no, that can't be true. That can't be true. Where's Sabrina? Paige is like, she's in Vanguard Hospital. They said that she might not make it through the night. She's in critical condition. And Maurice's whole world stops. You can see the emotion leave his face, his eyes turn dark and everything else. And he just stops and he freezes. And Dylan's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? He can't even answer. He gets off the phone with Paige. He's like, I gotta call the girls. And Dylan immediately springs into action and hugs him. Over at Danny's, this is when Danny gets a call about Sabrina, and she immediately stops her conversation with Tony and she rushes to the hospital, even with the towel on her. Back over at Andy's penthouse, Andy, her mom, and her sister are sitting down at the table. Her mom and the sister are eating, and Andy's trying to work on the case. She's in there talking about the case, and then Andy's like, I should call and check on the patient. Valerie's like, why? So you could cause yourself a panic? And as they're talking, Andy switches to Cheyenne, and she's like, where will you be staying while you're here in Atlanta? Valerie is like, what's your sister? Andy's like, what? That's when she gets the call from Maurice and Danny at the same time, and she's like, why is Maurice and Andy trying to call me at the same time? That's when Andy gets the news, and she gets up and she leaves. Over at the hospital, Danny makes it to the hospital first, and of course Maurice is just sitting there distraught. And Danny walks up to him and she's like, Maurice, what happened? Maurice is like, I can't do it. Once Maurice calms down and he gets himself together, he lets Danny know that Sabrina was in a massive car accident. It took the jaws of life to get her out. She's in a coma and she might not make it through the night, and she's in critical condition. Danny sits down and she's like, the last thing I did was hang up on her face, and all she wanted to do was tell me that she wants to get back together with Rich. And that's when Tony's like, I have to call Rich and let him know. And he comes back and he basically lets her know it's going to be alright, it's going to be okay. You have to think positive and don't upset yourself over things that you can't control. That's when Andy comes in and they let her know the same information about Sabrina being in the car accident. And he's like, we should have known something. She would never fly off the radar like this. And Maurice is like, we were just here. Me and Dylan were just here. I asked. They didn't want to give us no information. That's when Zach and Fatima come in. Fatima's like, is she really that bad? Maurice is like, yeah. Fatima's like, we gotta stay positive. We gotta send Sabrina all the positive energy and prayers. Zach is like, yeah, people get hurt all the time. She's gonna be okay. Her body just needs time to heal. Andy's like, I like how you say that, but in my heart of hearts, I already know that something's wrong. And that's when they get the notification over the intercom that there's a code blue in ICU. And that's when Maurice yells that that's the brain. This episode was so heartbreaking and so sad. I wonder how the whole sister circle and everybody will be able to deal with this. So let me know what you guys think about the episode. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on bell notifications. Bye.